Alright, Jesse, so this is your spreadsheet. It's got 3 pages, as you can see at the bottom. The first one is the overall guidelines on top for nutrition, along with instructions on how to track. The area below that is a tracking area, and I've given an example of what 2 weeks of data might look like. The calories auto-calculates based on your entry for protein, carbs, and fat. The date you just enter here, and you don't even need to mess with this, that will autofill. Here's where you note anything odd about your weigh-in, or if you worked in alcohol, which you can do with tier 2 and tier 3, since it's just counted as calories, and how that might affect your weight, so you can know that. And then anytime you make an adjustment based upon the adjustment schedule here, you would note it here, and then adjust the macronutrients in the yellow area. That's basically the 2 places you'll write things in, is the yellow area on top, and then the nutrition adjustments, fat, carbs, protein, and side notes in the tracking area along with the date. So this goes on for an extremely long time for you to track. But yeah, let's go through the overall. So we've got your carbohydrates, your macronutrients set up over here, fat, carbs, and protein for your 2 high days and your 5 low days. The calories, again, auto-calculates. And then we have your body weight targets and goals, and I roughly calculated what 15% body fat would be if your lean body mass stayed constant, and then that may or may not be accurate, but just to give us kind of a rough guideline of what we're looking at. And essentially we're looking at 4.5 months up to 9 months of work to get to where we want to be, assuming we can fall in this target rate of weight loss of 0.5 to 1% of your body weight. So yeah, nothing we need to be married to, but a good idea to keep us kind of in the ballpark where we want to be. These are some reference websites. MyFitnessPal, obviously a good place to track and look up your food. Eat This Much is a pretty cool website that has an algorithm where you can, if you get a membership to it, it's not very expensive. I think it's $10 a month. You just input what your macro targets are, how many meals per day you want to eat, what food you do and don't like, and the preparation time and the amount of cost you want to put on all those meals, and it spits out meal plans to match your needs, which is pretty neat. And then finally, there's Examine.com, which has all of the human data on every supplement you can possibly think of out there. So if you're considering any supplement or you want to learn more about the ones that I put here, just look it up at Examine.com. This is the relevant supplement education, and I've given a little blurb about the ones that may have relevance for your situation that you can choose to use. Fish oil, you would want to take enough to reach 2 to 3 grams per day of EPA and DHA combined if you decided to use it. That might have some health benefits. Caffeine, to actually have that aid anaerobic performance and weightlifting, you need to take roughly 5 to 6 milligrams per kg. So I think you're about 110 or 112, so we're talking 500 to 600 milligrams of caffeine to actually improve training performance. So that's a high dose that would probably get you buzzed pretty significantly. Caffeine also has another effect of simply preventing tiredness. So you can decide, hey, maybe I don't want to take 5 to 6 milligrams per kg to try to get a lifting benefit, but I might just drink coffee or take a lower dosage, about half that amount, just to prevent me getting tired on the diet. If you want, that's fine. This little asterisk there you might notice, and I have a note explaining that over here, that caffeine dependence does occur with regular usage. So that means if you want to take it at the 5 to 6 milligram per kg level very quickly, with regular usage, you'll stop getting that performance aid. So if you want to use it that way, I would advise only taking caffeine 1 to 2 days per week to try to prevent developing dependence. You'd probably take it on your 2 strength days, as an example. If caffeine is something you regularly take and you don't want to worry about dependence, and you don't want to take that kind of high dosage, you will still get the effect of preventing tiredness. That's the one effect that dependence doesn't diminish, but the central nervous system stimulation that can actually aid anaerobic performance will only occur if you avoid dependence. Anyway, also 1 per day normal dose multivitamin, not your animal pack or crazy kind of bodybuilding mega dose thing, may prevent nutritional deficiency while dieting when you have less calories to get in your micronutrients. The D3 that I mentioned in our consultation, depending on how much regular sunlight you get that's not through a window, 2,000 to 5,000 IU per day may help prevent a deficiency, which also might reduce the frequency of illness. So, kind of self-assess whether or not and that's appropriate for your body weight, by the way, that's adjusted for you. And you can kind of assess whether or not you think you get that much sunlight. If you're completely like a cave dweller, maybe you could consider 5,000 IU. If you're just looking at only being outside sometimes, maybe closer to 2,000. And then finally, creatine monohydrate, 5 grams per day, very simple recommendation. You're probably quite familiar with that supplement. Here's the 3-tiered nutritional tracking system, which we talked about pretty in depth. And then here is the big one, the adjustments. So essentially we've got 6 potential outcomes. Either you gain weight on a 7-day average, you maintain your body weight, or only lose up to 1.1 pounds, you lose between 1.2 to 1.9 pounds, or you lose 2 to 2.5 pounds, either with loss of performance, which includes mental and emotional performance, or without it, without a drop in performance. And then finally, losing more than our target of 2.6 pounds. And you will make a call based on that on what to do. So for example, if you actually gain weight, which won't happen, don't worry, then what we would do is we'd drop 30 grams of carbs on your 5 low days, or you can drop 10 grams of fat on all days. It's roughly the same weekly calorie adjustment, and that is your call. Do which one you think would be easier to adhere to, which would help you maintain a more normal diet, etc. Then if we're maintaining or just losing just slightly less than we want to see on the scale, it's half that, either 15 grams of carbs on your 5 days or 5 grams of fat on all days. If we lose in kind of the lower 2/3 range of our target, 1.2 to 1.9 pounds, no change. If we lose in kind of that upper third and you're good to go, no negative effect on performance, mental or physical, no change. But if you are seeing a big hit to either energy levels, your mental state, your mood, or your lifting, then we'll want to add 15 grams of carbs on your 5 low days or 5 grams of fat on all your days to try to basically slow down that rate of weight loss and help you maintain more muscle and sanity and strength in the process. And then finally, if you're losing more than 2.5 pounds a week, we'll just immediately make a pretty big adjustment to get you in the appropriate range so you aren't losing too fast and risking not being able to adhere long term or losing muscle mass. Also here I've got some notes just on kind of some threshold minimums that I don't want you to go below. And I don't want you to go below basically 1 gram per kilogram of carbohydrate or 0.5 grams per kilogram of fat, and I've adjusted that to your current body weight here. So if you find yourself making adjustments that would require you to go below that on any day, shoot me an email and we'll figure out what we want to do. And also that note that we talked about in our meeting, where if you are losing the target amount over 2 weeks but not 1 week, don't change anything. So let's say you lost 1 pound in the first week, but then you lost 1.5 the next for a total of 2.5. That's still within our 2-week target range of 2.4 to 5 pounds. So don't make an adjustment. Just be aware that sometimes the fluctuations can lead to a misrepresentative average 1 week, but not over 2 weeks. Okay? Here is some basic nutrient timing stuff. Meals per day. When convenient, spread your protein over them and have 3 to 6. My only peri-workout recommendation is trying to get within 0.4 to 0.5 grams per kilogram of protein within 1 to 2 hours on either side of your weight training session. This will often happen just with regular meals consumed. It doesn't need to be whey, but just a good thing to try to do. And then finally, just a note that you have a 48-hour refeed, which is ideal, but when needed, you can move those around so they may not be on concurrent days. And that's consistency being more important than the ideal situation for a refeed. These notes just go over the fact that below here is the tracking area, which I'm going to show you now. So as you can see, I've got some fake data in here which you can delete, and showing you what it might look like. This is a 7-day average of these cells, the first 7 days. This is a 7-day average of these cells, the next 7 days. And this guy here is just calculating the change. So you can see you lost 1.97, almost 2 pounds week to week. And that will continue all the way down forever. So yeah, that's the main page. That's the big bang. That's the thing that's going to be the most usage you have out of the spreadsheet is that first page. The next one is just a blurb on 20% borrowing and the roving refeed and combining methods. And there's an article I wrote there if you want to read more in depth as to the rationale, but nothing new that we didn't cover. And then finally, we have 12 weeks of training based on an upper-lower split. And essentially, we've got strength early in the week, hypertrophy later in the week, and each individual day has its own set of exercises, you'll notice that I've given you a lot of leeway here, so you can choose your movements, except for the areas we talked about where we kind of have to work around that lumbar injury and your biomechanics. So we've got front squat RDL, and then a leg press, and a lunge, and then some more isolation work on our hypertrophy day. Each one of these rep ranges corresponds to one of 3 progression schemes we have down low here. So we have a low rep, a moderate rep, and a high rep progression. Essentially, the low rep and the moderate rep is a linear periodized approach week to week, whereby each time you repeat an exercise, you make the smallest adjustment up in load and the smallest reduction down in number of reps. So you drop 1 rep and add 5 pounds. This is an example of someone with a really horrid bench press of only 100 pounds, but it really just wants you to see the pattern. 100, 105, 110, and then a deload that 4th week. Then we start the process again, but 5 pounds heavier. So it's this kind of wave-loaded linear progression over time that will, over time, be increasing your strength quite substantially. My advice is choose a load that will not have you hitting failure until your last set at most, and probably not even then. And that will give you some room to build up your loads. The deload is pretty straightforward. You drop off 1 set and you use a slightly lighter load. My advice is just use the lightest load you used from the last 3 weeks and drop 1 set off. That'll give you some recovery and give you some good momentum going into the next one. Moderate rep progression is exactly the same, except you're dropping 2 reps instead of 1. And besides that, it's identical to the previous one. Finally, the high rep progression scheme, typically used for isolation movements and machine work, it's acknowledging that you're not going to be able to make large jumps in load on a week-to-week basis. So instead, we're going to make a reverse linear progression where we're adding volume, and then once you've achieved a certain amount of volume, we add load. So basically, within 12 to 15 rep range, you're trying to just work for however long it takes to get all of your sets at 15. Once you do, then you drop back down to 12s and build back up to 12 to 15, build back up towards 15, but with a heavier load. So there's not a pattern here, so don't look for one. But what you can see is that in this example, it took 6, 7, 8 weeks before you were able to get, or rather 7 weeks before this person was able to get all 3 sets at 15. So boom, then they started the next one at 25 pounds, the next lightest jump, and started building back towards it. Okay? Deload has done the same. There is a video here if you want to watch to see this in depth. And my friend, that is it. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Swap in movements if you want for different things, so long as it's roughly targeting the same body part, similar volume, it's all good.